Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about ego lifting versus controlled cheating. And here's what I'm going to say about that. If you do not understand the difference between the two, you're probably not ready to do any sort of controlled cheating, because controlled cheating is generally using a little bit of body English on movement so that you can get a little bit heavier of an eccentric overload, such as a very controlled cheat curl, a little bit of body English on rows, right? Things like that. But your form should be consistent. And again, I think it's really a problem when you have influencers now talking about ego lifting as a positive thing, because all of us who are old timers in the game who have made it through and are still able to lift, with any degree of regularity heavily, we all know that it doesn't work. Right? This is what knocks guys out of the game. It's short timers. The guys who have even these impressive physiques who talk about ego lifting, it's because they've used a lot of stuff. They've built a lot of muscle quickly, and then, by the 10-year mark, they're completely done. Right? 10 years after they start working out, they're never going to lift another weight again. Or if they do, they're going to be so destroyed that they can't. So if you watch kind of what I'm doing through a lot of this video, watch that incline benching I did. Right? Watch this flat benching I'm doing. Notice everything is a soft touch. Things tend to be paused. They tend to be soft touches. Right? Notice you don't see me even when it gets heavy and I have to grind a little bit on the last rep when it slows down because we're a rep from failure. What do you see? Maybe a little pause, controlled, but you don't see me shifting around to the sides. Okay? That is very, very, very strict lifting. These rows are not as strict, right? I come over and I'll use a little bit of body English on a barbell row. And this is a Yates row. This is actually, I'll just put it this way. If you've never done these before, try doing these with 225 underhand grip without straps. I think this kind of gives people an idea of what my grip strength and forearm strength is like. Just try it. But notice the form is a little looser, right? The form is a little looser. Why? What's the difference? What's the difference? It's all controlled, right? It's using just a little bit of leg drive and consistent form. Okay, in other words, I'm not swinging around, I'm not jerking around. I'm still using the back, the lats, the traps, the biceps as the primary movers. And it just gives me a little bit heavier of an eccentric load, lets me use a little more weight, because that's more than I weigh. It's 225 on the bar, so I'm having to use that to kind of keep it moving. Okay, but what I want you to notice with any of the sets with exercises like that, it's consistent. You're not seeing me using a dramatically different type of body English, right? You're not seeing me lay back. You're not seeing the bar path change. Okay, when you see guys doing that, even on some of those curls, maybe I'll use just a little bit of loose form near the end. But notice I don't lay back with a curl. You want to see guys tear biceps? Do cheat curls where you lay backwards. Okay, in other words, to where your shoulders go behind your hips. And then they lay back so that they can cheat that way. Okay, that causes bicep tears. Cheat rows, deadlifts, things like that, to where you shift the wrong way. This is what hurts your back. Okay, the difference, I don't even feel my back on those rows. Like my lower back, it doesn't even feel worked. But I also spent a lot of time building my low back up for deadlifts. I deadlift 635. At age 47. So the difference there, though, it's all strict. But when you see the big lifts, you see me benching, you see me deadlifting, you see me squatting, it's always going to be strict. It's always going to be strict. And I'm just one example of many. I'm one of the older guys who've learned this stuff the hard way. We've watched this over the years, right? Stricter form most of the time is a good idea. And I'm not saying all the time. I'm not saying everything you have to do has to be super controlled and strict. Okay? I'm not saying it always has to be. But knowing when to use a little body English, knowing when you can get away with it, when you can't, using it to create a little bit of extra stimulus. And again, look, my back development is pretty decent. It's pretty obvious that my back doesn't suffer from a little bit of body English on these, right? Doesn't suffer from it. But notice that it's very consistent. And this is a perfect example, because this is an exercise I will use a little bit looser of form on. but it's consistent. And notice we come all the way down, the lats get stretched to the bottom. Okay, the lats get stretched at the bottom every time. Same thing with these curls. You know, they're not always super strict. I might use just a little bit of body English out of the bottom, particularly near the end of the set. Okay, because sometimes I need it for that little bit of eccentric overload on the biceps. You know, everyone talks about eccentric reps, and they mistakenly believe that that means, oh, really slow eccentrics. Really slow eccentrics in studies don't actually work that well for muscle growth. It's the heavier eccentrics. So how do you get a heavier eccentric? You use a little bit of, just a small amount of leg drive so that the weight is a little heavier than you can lift. But it shouldn't be dramatically heavier than you can lift, right? It shouldn't be dramatically heavier unless you're doing it like a true cheat curl. If you're going to do a true cheat curl, you better really know what you're doing. There's bicep injury waiting to happen. The same thing on pressing. Anything off the chest, you don't see me bouncing it. It's all controlled, right? Nice, clean 225 work set. Nice soft touch on the chest, or I've done these to where I'll pause. But it's always going to be paused, or it's going to be a soft touch. You're trying to keep the stretch reflex. Okay? This is how you get strong. This is how you get jacked. And particularly for strength, you know, a lot of guys are like, oh, if you lift really heavy and the ego lifting will help you get strong. No, it won't. Because when strength is tested in any sort of event, what happens? It's got to be strict. You're going to power lift. How's your bench press going to be judged? A pause on the chest. They're going to make you pause so they give you a press command. Your butt can't lift off the bench. Okay, on a deadlift, if you do a powerlifting meet, you can't hitch at the top of a deadlift. You can't cheat the weight up. You get disqualified for that. So no, a bunch of ego lifting isn't going to improve your strength, right? It's just going to feed your ego. It's going to feed your ego. All it does is mount up injuries, and it doesn't cause any more muscle growth. You know, the guys who are doing it, which you have to keep in mind, they're not necessarily bigger than the guys who are training strict. So you need to keep that in mind. Yes, there are guys who use a lot of body English. There are guys who do some, ego lifting. But are they necessarily bigger? No. There are guys winning the Mr. Olympia who train super strict. Some of them do some cheat work. Some of them haven't. But that's certainly not the key to gains. Because if it was, there wouldn't be guys winning the top bodybuilding shows in the world who train only strict. Because then they do sometimes. Okay? It's just a preferred style. But keep in mind, it comes with risks. Okay? It comes with risks. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.